Good morning. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'hakol niyah b'dvaro. In April 1911, there was a very tragic story in Ukraine, Russia, where a young 13-year-old Ukrainian boy was murdered, and his body was found near a brick factory that was owned by a Jew. And there was another Jew also working there. His name was Mendel Bayless, who was a very simple, pious, beautiful Jew with a beautiful family. And Mendel Bayless was accused of the murder. And the allegation went that Pesach is in a few weeks' time, and we know that the Jews have to kill a non-Jewish child and extract their blood to use in the matzah, right? The famous blood libels. And so he was arrested and imprisoned for that murder. This became a very big story. He was in prison for more than 2.5 years till the trial began, Yom Kippur, after Yom Kippur, 2.5 years later. And during that time, there was a major upheaval in the Jewish world, in that community, in the country, and around the whole world, where Jews were mobilizing themselves to prepare for the trial and make the argument, of course, why he's innocent, and Jews, God forbid, would never kill a non-Jewish person. And the Jews hired a very prominent, successful Jewish lawyer, Oscar Asher Grusenberg. And they also put together a strong rabbinic team, because they knew that in the prosecution, the prosecutors are going to be using a lot of texts from the Torah, from Jewish tradition, and try to turn them around and spin them and explain why the Jews hate the non-Jews, and you're allowed to murder non-Jews, and you have to use their blood for various Jewish rituals. So a strong group of rabbis came together to prepare the lawyer and to be able to explain everything properly. Sure enough, during the trial, the prosecution raised the following argument. And they quoted a passage from the Talmud, a teaching from Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is interpreting a verse from the Torah. The Torah says, Adam Atem, you, my people, my nation, the Jewish people, are called Adam. Adam means a human, which could imply, wrongly interpreted, only you, the Jewish people, are human, but the other nations of the world are not called human. And if that's the case, of course, the Jews have the right, the ability, perhaps the mandate to kill and murder non-Jews. That is the teaching of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, and that's what the prosecution raised in the trial. A beautiful explanation and response to this was provided by the chief rabbi of Moscow, Rabbi Yaakov Maza, a teaching which he heard from his rabbi, Rabbi Meir Shapiro. And he told like this. In Hebrew, there are several words that mean person or human. Adam is one of them. There's also Ish, Enosh, Gever, a few words. What's unique and different about the word Adam versus all the other words that refer to a human is that all the other words can have a singular and a plural. Ish, Enosh is the singular, Anashim is the plural, Gever is the singular, Gvarim is the plural. The only exception to this is Adam. Adam, which means a human, it means an individual human. It also means the species of humans, Adam. It doesn't have a plural. And so they explained in the courtroom. And they said, you know why the God says, Adam Atem, only you, the Jewish people, are called Adam? Not because non-Jewish people are not considered humans, heaven forbid, but because only we have the traits of Adam, which means a singular nation. And they presented the argument. Where else in the world, which other society, community, nation in the world, where one simple, unassuming person is arrested and charged for a particular crime, where would you have an entire community, an entire nation, an entire world rallying themselves just to protect and defend such a person? You don't have this in any other society in the world other than the Jewish people. We are a singular unit. It may be the Jew in Ukraine, the neighbor, the friend. It may be in a different country, the other side of the world. But when a Jew on the other side of the world hears that there's a Jew in crisis, everybody mobilizes together, making efforts. What can we do to help him? We have a unique trait, a unique power, this unity, this connection that we all share with each other. And that, in the argument, in the trial, in the courtroom, was a very powerful argument, because clearly everybody saw how this simple allegation against one individual was actually becoming a national and international affair. So this is a beautiful story, and it's going to help us appreciate one of the teachings for today. So today we're studying chapter 12 and 13. And where we left off is that we understood various interpretations of the prayer of Modeh Ani, the 4 levels of interpretations, and then we presented the deepest level, the most highest spiritual level, which was the Yechidah, the essential interpretation. And that interpretation said, briefly, is that the gratitude we have in the morning, Modeh Ani Lefanecha, thank you Hashem, is a gratitude, an expression of, an awareness of the deepest essence of my life and of my soul. Not a part of me, not a particular trait of me, not a particular state of affairs of my life, but rather me and life itself. The essence of the soul, the indestructible, quintessential core of a person. The pintilayid, that small spark within you that is the essence of your soul, which is turning to and connected with the essence of God, not a particular revelation, not a particular manifestation, not a particular level, but rather the essence of the Godhead. And it's the appreciation of this life, and that's the expression of gratitude every morning, one essence to the other essence. That was the Yechidah explanation of the Modeh Ani. And now we're going to move forward and say, how does this interpretation, this teaching, illuminate, shed light on the other interpretations that we shared? Just like a Yechidah, an essence, when an essence is revealed, it will illuminate, not change, illuminate all of the other manifest levels of something. Well, so too here as well. So let's start from the beginning. This is a deeper level now of our tour through the orchard, the garden of Torah. How does the Yechidah explanation enhance our understanding of the pshat, of the simple interpretation of Modeh Ani? If you recall, the simple interpretation, the pshat, was, it's a gratitude prayer. Thank you, Hashem. I wake up in the morning, I've been given the gift of life. Before waiting to get up and become prepared and wash my hands and start to formally pray and extend fancy blessings to God, I just want to give an instinctual thank you to Hashem for restoring my soul back into me and giving me another day of life. How can this interpretation be sharpened and become deeper understood? And it goes like this. If you look at the actual words of the prayer, let's pay attention to one word. Modeh Ani Lefanecha, thank you Hashem, shechazarta bi nishmati. You have restored not a soul, but my soul back into me. Why is that word important? It's possible that God would have restored a soul into me this morning, but not my soul. Someone else's soul, something else's soul. We believe in reincarnation. So we believe after a person passes away, their soul goes through another journey here in this world. If we're fortunate enough, the soul will go through another journey in the human body, in a Jewish body. Less fortunate, a kind of punishment, it's possible the soul could end up in an animal's body or some other kind of experience here in this world as a kind of repair, a kind of tikkun for a life that wasn't lived properly. Similarly, if every morning God is restoring the soul back into us, it is possible that God would restore not our soul, but something else's soul. It is possible that the soul of an animal, the soul of a non-human, or the soul of a lousy human, what in those days, in the Talmudic times, the soul of an idolater, a non-believer, somebody who rejects faith and God, could have been restored in me. And the blessing of Modeh Ani is, I am so happy and thankful, or I'm only grateful, because you restored my soul back into me. My soul, the soul of the Jew, the soul of the believer, the soul of somebody who can and does appreciate the awareness of my Creator. In other words, here we're coming into a very deep sense of understanding and appreciation of what truly is life. A life has to be a true life, a life worth living, And that's a life we're grateful for. And if it wouldn't be that kind of life, we would not be grateful. Here's a story. There was once a student of the great Alter Rebbe. His name was Rebbe Yekusiel Lepler, Rebbe Kutsha, they used to call him. The Alter Rebbe, his Rebbe once blessed him a blessing for long life. Yeah, we all want a blessing for long life. If somebody blessed you for long life, what would you say? Thank you, I accept it, I take it. When the Alter Rebbe blessed him for long life, he turned to the Alter Rebbe and he said, Aber nit mit Yar. I'll accept the blessing, but on one condition. I don't want my life to be that of a peasant life, of somebody who has eyes but does not see, who has ears but cannot hear, whose eyes don't see God or the divine, whose ears are unwilling to hear from the divine. That was his response to the Alter Rebbe. What's going on over here? When somebody gives you a gift, what's the appropriate response? Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for thinking of me. Imagine you give someone a gift. This happens to children sometimes, or often. I come back from a trip. I bought them a gift. Come home, give my child a gift. I'm all excited, feeling like a great dad. And the child turns to me and says, really? That's the gift? That's all you got me? You couldn't get me something else? You couldn't bring me more, right? So when a child gives that kind of reaction, maybe it's to be expected, but not as an adult. Someone gives you a gift and you say, whoa, hold on a minute, give me more. That's not enough. It's really, really disrespectful, really inappropriate. And here, Rabbi Yekusiel Lepler is turning to the Alter Rebbe and saying, you want to bless me with long life? Well, make sure it's this kind of life. I need more than just what you're giving me. And if it's another kind of life, I would refuse it. I don't want that. So you know what the explanation is? Here the Rebbe explains. Rabbi Yekusiel Lepler was not saying, I want more. He was saying, I accept your blessing, and I accept it in its truest form. What is your blessing? Your blessing is for long life. Well, what is life? And on the deepest of levels, one appreciates that life, only true life, is life where somebody recognizes, appreciates, and is aware of their creator, their connection with the divine. A life that one can live in accordance with living by the summoning and their mission here in this world. A life lived with Torah. That is life. And without that, if I can't have such a life, I don't want it, because it is not life. That's a very deep understanding. How many of us truly appreciate life in that way? And that is something that can only be understood with our appreciation of the Yechida, of the fifth deepest level of the soul. When it comes to other levels of the soul, right, which Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, Chaya, we said there's the functional soul, there's the emotional soul, there's the intellectual soul, there's the soul of faith, of transcendence. All of these levels of life coming from the soul, they obviously can all appreciate their creator, their source, God, but in their world, God may be an addition to their identity. They may say God is an important thing, but not necessarily an essential thing. Our mind can appreciate that understanding God and studying Torah definitely enhances my life, definitely makes my life more beautiful. But could I have life without that? Yes. It won't be as good. It won't be as qualitative, but I can still have it. The same reasoning is in my emotional soul and my functional soul. So on those levels of the soul, God is important, beautiful, valuable, but not essential. Only the essence of my soul, which is the truest part of myself that is completely aware of its connection to its source, to its creator, only it says God is not important and beautiful and enjoyable and meaningful, but God is essential. And so once we come up with that recognition of the deepest parts of ourselves, now we've illuminated the very simple meaning of the prayer Modeh. When we turn to Hashem and we say, thank you for giving back my soul this morning, it's an appreciation of it needed to be my soul which is capable of living a life worth living. And were it to have been an animal soul or another soul that is unaware of or not willing to live the meaningful life of faith, I would not want that life. I would not be grateful, because that is not at all the gift of life itself. That is a very powerful explanation and meditation. Think about that. And think about how often we can access that consciousness to understand that the only real life is the life living the mission that we were given, a life connected with God. And without that, we don't have the gift of life. Let's continue. Chapter 12. Now that we've understood how the Yechida explanation illuminated the Pshat, the simple interpretation of Modani, let's move to the next step. How does the Yechida explanation illuminate the next level, the level of Remez? Okay. What was the Remez of the prayer of Modani? If you recall, the Remez was that waking up in the morning is a hint to, an allusion to, a reminder of the great promise, the prophecy of important Jewish faith, resurrection of the dead. There will come a time at the end of days that the dead will come back alive. And since when I go to sleep, it's a 60th of death, a small portion of my soul goes to heaven, it's a partial death, waking up reminds me, strengthens my faith in this great tenet of faith. Now, one could ask and argue, that's a really flimsy, weak kind of remez and reminder. I mean, it's really remote. It's really, it's very minuscule. I mean, when I fall asleep, heaven forbid, I'm not dead at all. I'm very much alive. Many of my functions and organs are functioning and working well, and I'm dreaming and I'm breathing, and my body is regulating. There's no death. And to wake up in the morning to suggest that it's a kind of resurrection of the dead seems to be a bit of a stretch. That's first of all. Second of all, it actually is not really turning my attention to and strengthening my faith in the entire concept of resurrection of the dead. Because resurrection of the dead at the end of days is more than just a reunification of body and soul. Okay, so you can imagine body and soul together. You have a living person passes away, they separate. So how would you resurrect them? You got to bring them back together. But when a person passes away and has been dead for many years, what happens? The body decomposes. There is no body left. According to the Talmud, the entire body will decompose except for one bone. It's called the loose bone. Maybe it's in the back of the neck somewhere. And what needs to happen at the resurrection of the dead is more than just a bringing together body and soul, but it's an actual effort of recreation, regeneration of body and soul. Before you can bring body together back with soul, you first have to recreate body. Body is decomposed. There's this miracle where the body will regenerate itself, perhaps from that bone. And then the body becomes a body once again. And the same thing happens with the soul. Once a soul departs from a body, a soul goes on its own life. It kind of changes its image, it changes its form. And for it to be sent on another mission back into the body, it also needs to go through a kind of regeneration, recreation, changing its identity a little bit to become soul within body. These are major things that are going to happen in the process of resurrection of the dead. Where do we find any expression, any hint to this phenomena in the wake up of the morning? Wake up in the morning, my body's the same body as last night, hopefully. Nothing has changed. My soul is for the most part the same soul of last night because most of it is still within me. The small portion of my soul went to heaven. Okay, now it's being restored back into me, but it really seems a big stretch to suggest that this is a reminder of or a strengthening of our faith in resurrection of the dead. So the answer is as follows. Here we're going to discover how the Yechida interpretation of Modani is going to illuminate and increase our understanding of this remez, of this hint, the second interpretation of Modani. And it goes like this. There is an important Jewish belief, very heavily and extensively explained in Chassidic teachings, about the nature of creation of the world. Everybody knows, as the Torah says, in the beginning of time, for 6 days, God created the world. And then after those original 6 days, what's happening? We would assume God is maintaining his creation, running it, orchestrating it, managing it. But there's a prayer that we say every morning, and we say, "Hamachadesh b'tuvo b'chol yom tamid ma'aseh v'reshit." God renews creation every day. What does that mean? The world is 6, 5, 7, as many thousands of years old. What does it mean he's renewing creation every day? And there's the Kabbalah, the CHASSIDUT goes deeper and says not just every day, but every moment God is renewing creation. Why is that? So there's a very important foundational idea here, very briefly for now. And that is that the creation of the world happened yesh me'ayin, something from nothing, creation ex nihilo. Which means, at the beginning of everything, what existed? Nothing, other than true existence. True existence is God's existence. And then God decides to create. Now, creation, which is the existence of otherness, the existence of something other than God, the existence of something outside of the infinite presence of God, the existence of something finite and limited and physical, truly makes no sense within the understanding of what true original existence is and was, which is God. It makes no sense. It need not be, other than God decided and willed for it to be. And in order to achieve and create something that is unnatural, it needs to be affected and animated and recreated all the time. And if for a moment that creational effort will stop, will cease, then that existence, which is unnatural, will fall to its default and will no longer exist. That was a very deep formula. Here's an example. If I have something in my hand, I have a stone. So I say, what effort is required to make the stone fall to the ground? The answer is no effort at all. It doesn't need my energy. There is a gravitational pull, a natural energy of the universe. If I just let go, it'll fall to the ground. What is required for this stone to fly into the air? Whoa, that's unnatural. Stones don't fly. Things don't go up, things go down. If I want to send this stone up, I have to inject energy into that stone, and I will throw it. And then the stone will go up. For how long will the stone continue to soar upwards? You know for how long? Not endlessly, but something will fall down endlessly unless there's already a ground and that will stop it. But going up, it'll only continue to travel upwards as long as there's energy within it. And the moment the energy runs out, it will just fall back to its natural default. So depends on how much energy I put into it. If I do a little throw, it'll go up a little bit, run out of fuel, and fall back down. If I put in a large amount of energy, it'll go higher and higher, but eventually the energy will run out and it'll fall back down. That is a metaphor. That's an example. God creating the world is an unnatural state of affairs. God doesn't need worlds. God is the true existence, infinite existence. There's no need for untrue worlds and existences and creations of finitude and physical creations. God creating the world is similar to throwing a stone upwards and not throwing a stone or letting a stone travel downwards. And therefore, for it to exist, for all of existence to exist, there needs to be a constant fueling of divine creative energy into that thing, making it be. And the moment that the divine fuel will stop, it will just disappear, as if it never existed before. So think about that. It doesn't mean, it's not just that God many thousands of years ago created our world, but it means that every single moment of existence, there's an animating force of God that creates our world. Right now, there's an instruction and a flow of creative force from God that the world should exist. You should exist. Everything around you should exist. Every blade of grass, every grain of sand should exist. It's happening all the time. It needs to fuel existence. And if it would stop for 1 second in a grain of sand or in a particular item or in this table, it would just disappear. That's a phenomenal concept. It's called perpetual creation. So, in essence, think about this. You, right now, are being resurrected. A moment ago, you were alive because a moment ago there was a divine force creating you. That does not guarantee or say anything or predict about your existence in your life a moment later. For you to exist a moment later, there needs to be an additional creative force fueling your existence. Every moment is a resurrection. Every moment is a recreation of all of existence. That's what we believe, which is such a powerful idea. Think about how our past shapes our present, our present shapes our future. Sometimes we think we're so stuck in something from the past, an experience, a failure. We want to change. It's so difficult to break out. So yes, definitely past behavior and decisions affect the present and the future, and we need to deal with that. But also realize that the previous moment is essentially not an indicator or not a force that will determine the next moment. Not essentially. The next moment is a new reality from God. The present moment is the only true moment that exists. The moment before no longer exists. The moment after does not yet exist and may not exist. Who knows? The only real moment is now. Now, there's a force from God creating you, creating all of reality. Deal with that. Cherish that. If you access that, it can do a lot of good to you. It can be very healthy and beneficial. So, talking about a reminder of the Jewish faith of resurrection of the dead, you don't have to go so far, even to waking up from your sleep. Right now, there's a kind of reminder. In a kind of way, every moment is an experience of the resurrection of the dead, if you think about it on a very deep level. The only thing is that waking up in the morning, it's a little more vivid, it's a little more apparent, because clearly we were in a lesser state of consciousness when we were sleeping, and there was a part of our soul that did leave us. We can actually see that, and therefore feel that, or know that, and therefore, even though every moment could be appreciated this way, but the waking up in the morning is a much more vivid experience that reminds us of this concept of resurrection of the dead. This concept is truly understood and realized only with the revelation of the Yichidah, of the fifth essential idea, an explanation of Modeh Ani. Because, let's think about this. We said there are 4 levels of interpretation of Torah, 4 levels of the soul, and they also correspond to the 4 worlds. We talk about 4 spiritual worlds, the lowest being Asiyah, Yetzirah, Bria, Atzilut. And now it's not a class on the 4 worlds, but they have 4 levels of manifestation of existence, where God first creates and manifests through the highest level of existence, a very spiritual realm called Atzilut, and then it becomes distilled into Bria, then even further distilled, and the spiritual light contracted and more hidden into Yetzirah, and then finally the lowest world, our world, where spiritual light is entirely contracted. We can't even see it or experience it at all unless with great effort. And those are like the 4 layers of our consciousness, where the essential soul filters first through into the transcendental realm of faith and willpower, and then lower still into our mind for intellect, and then lower than that into our hearts for emotions, and then into our functional selves. On all those 4 levels, of course, they do or can appreciate God, be aware of their creator, but at the same time, they are all in a state of existence, of created existence. They're creations. And a creation, no matter how much it can appreciate its creator, but it always works under a specific paradigm. And its paradigm is, my existence is obvious, I exist. And what's less obvious, something I need to become aware of and learn about, is how I exist, and that is my creator. In the realm of the creator, it's a complete opposite paradigm. I exist, meaning what exists? Only true God existence, infinite light of Hashem, the creator. Nothing else is obvious. Nothing else needs to exist. And the awareness of, or the existence of creations is what's less obvious and what needs to be affected or understood or realized. It's the two very different paradigms. Because what lies at the center of your universe? What lies at the center of your consciousness? Whose existence? Your existence? And then you need to learn about God's existence? Or is the center of your consciousness God's existence, your creator, your inner spiritual side? And then you need to learn about and come to appreciate your created existence. So in all of these created realms, all of these four levels of the soul, all of these four interpretations of the Torah work in the paradigm of existence. Created existence is the obvious. And we need to now learn about the existence of our creator. Just like we explained earlier, how different levels of the soul appreciate God as an important thing, but not as an essential thing. Right? It adds to our existence, but it's not essential to our existence. Only Yechida, only that level of the essence of the soul, only that highest level that transcends all worlds and all existence, it's the level of the creator, sees it differently, sees how nothing exists, only true God exists. And then we need to, so that level appreciates the concept of the recreation of all existence every second, because it understands that all of created reality need not exist, is unnatural, is like the stones being thrown up into the air. And for it to happen, it requires an effort. We, our created selves, don't feel that there's an effort needed for us to exist. There's an effort needed for us to welcome God into our existence. But there it's the other way around. And so Yechida appreciates that the only true existence is God. And therefore, every moment, there's a necessary fueling, an animating force of God for everything to exist. And then we can appreciate how resurrection of the dead is symbolically, or more than symbolically, is in a way, in a sense, happening every single moment. That's a whole new awareness for us. That's a new appreciation of the gift of life, the gift of the present moment, to understand at every moment of our lives, how can we be more of a receptacle to the flow of God's life force in us, never to take it for granted, and to appreciate that the present moment is a conscious move of God creating you and everything right now. And so there's certainly a deliberate effort here, a concerted effort, and a kind of calling of the moment for your life and for all of existence right now. And with this, we have explained how the Chassidut has illuminated the Pshat and the Remez of the interpretations of Modani. And next class, we'll go further to the next two levels of Drush and Sod. Wishing you a very blessed day, L'chaim, and God bless.